Well, good evening, everyone. Welcome to tonight's booster session. My name is Amy Clausen. I'm the Family Support Specialist in Northern Ohio and the Program Coordinator with Ohio Family to Family. While we wait for others to join, I'll take a few minutes to share information with you. You may be curious who we are and who's putting on the show for you tonight. Not a show, this is important information. Ohio Family to Family is where I work, and we're a program that sits within the University of Cincinnati University Centers for Excellence in Developmental Disabilities. That program sits within Cincinnati Children's Hospital. At the UCED, we work to improve the health and self-respect, equity, and equal treatment and self-determination of all individuals with disabilities and their families. So we really want people to lead the lives they want because we know everyone benefits. The UCED does this through a lot of education, training, research, guiding policy, and sharing information. Some of that, which is what we are doing tonight. Ohio Family to Family, we call F2F, and P2P, which is parent to parent, are sister programs at the UCED. We're grant funded, we're statewide, we're free, and we help families who have children with disabilities and special health care needs navigate all kinds of healthcare service systems. We provide one-on-one confidential support and services, and there's no eligibility other than having a family member with a disability. So if you need support after tonight, or if you know someone who needs support from us, we would be happy to help them. Just share with them that we have a QR code and an intake form, and we can assist. And here's our team. Of course, I'm Amy. The rest of us are on the left, Jenna, Meredith, and Hadia. We welcome you to reach out, depending on where you live or work in the state. So I'm going to share with you a few things that are coming up, including one huge event we're hosting next Wednesday. If you live in and around the Cincinnati area, you'll want to attend the in-person Journey into Adulthood Expo from 9 to 3 in Sharonville. And if you aren't familiar with that, this is the flyer, and we can drop the registration link in the chat if you would like. Also, we are debuting with you all tonight for the first time. You're going to see another flyer that's brand new announcing our 2026 Family and Caregiver Support Groups. We're offering these for the first 5 months of next year, every third Wednesday at noon on Zoom. That's hard to say, noon on Zoom. We do ask that you register. This is a really safe space for just families and caregivers who have children or young adults with disabilities who are really struggling and just want to talk to others in a safe space as your peer. And me and my colleagues will be facilitating those. And we really just want families to have another outlet. And it's free, obviously. Everything we do is free. Just a plug for our Northeast Ohio Transition Expo next April 25th, 2026, here in our Independence, Ohio area. It's on a Saturday, it's free, it's a giant event. There's going to be lots of vendors, similar to Cincinnati, except we're also going to have speakers, not except, but we're also going to have speakers. So tune in and stay in touch with me and Wendy. And I mention Wendy because she's one of our fantastic partners who put on these booster sessions that you're attending tonight. along with our other partners, Down Syndrome Association, Opportunities for Ohioans with Disabilities, Milestones, which is now a program of LifeWorks Autism. I think I got that right. Medina County DD, Cuyahoga DD, and Disability Services Department at Cincinnati Children's. And of course, Wendy at Live Special. Shout out to Wendy. Anyway, we cannot do this work alone. Supporting families takes a village, and I'm so lucky to have such dedicated planning partners. So thank you to all of them and all of you who are on tonight. So we're almost getting to the end of the announcements. I just want to give everybody some friendly reminders. This helps all of us stay engaged successfully and be respectful of each other, both audience and us as presenters. Please mute your system and hide your video. Turn off your cameras. No screen captures are requested tonight. Please avoid taking screenshots or video clips because we are recording tonight's session. So that way you can capture what you need in the whole context of the messages and information. Please don't leave without completing an evaluation that will get you access to the materials. And please do put your questions in the chat. Bradley and his team are going to get to all of your questions. Some, he might even ask you to turn your microphone back on and actually have a conversation if time allows. But for now, please use the chat. Okay? This is the last slide, but it's the best one because I get to really welcome all of you who have joined during the announcements. Thank you again for your time tonight. We're thrilled you've joined us. We're going to dive into some valuable insights and real-world experiences supporting individuals and families to understand better the role of county boards of developmental disabilities for teens and young adults. Our incredible panel tonight will bring a wealth of knowledge and perspectives. Firstly is Bradley Weiner, who's our fantastic facilitator and the Director of Education at Milestones. He will guide the conversation with Lisa Combs is a parent and an SSA advisor, Services and Support Administrator advisor with the Ohio Association of County Boards. She brings both professional expertise and lived experience. Leah Dalton is the Manager of Support Administration for Youth and Transition at Cuyahoga County Board of Developmental Disabilities. She offers some deep insight into transition planning and resources for us tonight. We're really honored to hear from two fantastic parents. One is Stephanie Stewart and Marcy Brown. They're going to share their personal journeys and some practical advice. Together, this panel represents a really powerful mix of professional knowledge and family perspectives. So please get ready. Use this time wisely to ask your questions while everyone's here and be engaged and ready to be informed and join in the discussion later. So with that said, I'll hand it off to Bradley.
Oh boy, thanks. Goodness gracious, I am excited about this. And frankly, I was thinking, Amy, as you were doing your introduction, I am going to learn a lot from our panelists today. And I'm really excited about that. So hi, everybody. Very quickly about me, as Amy said, I work for Milestones. If you caught that, Milestones has just merged to become part of LifeWorks, which is part of a large social service agency up in Cleveland, in the Cleveland area. But we still continue the work of Milestones and under the name of Milestones, where I've been working for just over 2 years. Now, before that, I worked for a developmental disabilities residential provider, one that served kids. And during my 10 years in that role, one of the things I often did was intake. I was usually the person who was in charge of screening young people whose families were looking for a residential placement. And by doing that, I got to learn a lot about the systems we have in place in Ohio. I've gotten to see some amazing things where uh, people and families' needs have been met tremendously. And I've also seen some major struggles happen, like kind of the whole gamut. Um, we, in the state of Ohio, we have this county board based system, which means that for a lot of your questions, there are going to be 88 different specific answers because each county is going to have their own way of doing stuff. And frankly, even once we put it all together, the way I look at it is this: the system, we have this system that is the best we have come up with as a society so far. It's not perfect. However, this is what it looks like. And we're going to be connecting you over the next chunk of time with information, power, um, people who maybe you'll be able to relate to, maybe perspectives you haven't heard before. Like I said, there's always more to learn. So I'm so excited to get going together. Final thing from Bradley: the way this is going to work for the next half hour or so, each of our panelists is going to share a little bit of their background and sort of um, some information, starting off with their part of the story. I might ask some follow up questions in the middle, but the part that is most exciting is the final 30 minutes of this. So that'll be around 7:30. I will start to kick it to you, the audience, officially for questions. And if you want to start asking questions in the chat box, you can. Maybe we'll answer them proactively. Um, and that's the adventure. You do you. It's nighttime. Maybe you're watching this while feeding the family. Maybe you're watching this while working and feeding the family and helping with homework. Um, you know, you do you. We're all here to do our best. And I am so excited to first hear from Lisa Combs, who has a variety of intersecting perspectives here. Hey, Lisa, thank you so much for joining us. I'm really, really appreciative.
Thanks, Brad, so much. All right, well, welcome everybody. I know I just ate. I hope you all are enjoying and taking a little time for yourselves right now and being able to enjoy it and sit back and listen. I do want to throw out, I did invite here in the room also is a coworker of mine. Her name is Whitney Langston. She can give a little wave, Whitney. There you go. Whitney is a newer SSA she's an advisor for actually youth in transition age at OACB. It's a new position at the association. So you're going to learn a little bit about the association today and a little bit more about county boards. But Whitney is a great contact at OACB as she was working in Auglaize County prior to this with youth and transition age kids too. So she will, hopefully the next time you guys need somebody, Brad, she will be your person. So again, I'm Lisa Combs. I work for the Ohio Association of County Boards as the SSA advisor. More importantly, I am the mom of John Ross, who's on the screen with me in our many, many selfies that we take on a regular basis. He is 28 years old. We are going to be skipping through some slides because I made this presentation because I had another parent meeting earlier today that was more broad for all ages. So when I say just skip that slide, don't worry, you're not missing anything that exciting. If you ever want to have the full thing, just let me know and I'll give it to you. So let's kind of get started. And I'm going to tell you just a really brief story of my son and my journey. And I mean, I'm not going to read these to you, right? You know, my son was born and we had a diagnosis of a disability within 5 days. He was the youngest of three at that time, and I was working for a county board system. And the worries that I had immediately. I had been working with families. I had been working as a speech therapist in a school system there. I had been doing intake and eligibility. And all of a sudden, I was like, oh my goodness, what do you mean I'm going to have a child with a lifelong disability? So it was a really, it was a crazy 7 years. While I took off some time from work so that I could really dedicate to having 3 children and one of them having a disability. So I had all the same worries that I'm sure a lot of you have, whether your child has a disability or not. But certainly when they have a disability, you can see, he was being fed by a G tube and he couldn't eat on his own, and his potential failure to thrive, and that was in the realm of medical issues pretty not that big of a deal, but at the time felt huge to me. And of course all of his milestones were very delayed, so I had all those same worries. And then we were working through preschool, and I won't even go into all the drama and class and things to think about with preschool, but we'll go ahead and keep moving with John Ross's story so I can just take a minute for so then as he got older, we had continuing concerns with school. He ended up in a private Catholic school because it just was really important to our family for him to be where his sisters were. But that also meant a lot of compromise, that he would not get as specialized services. So that was a very big decision and an ongoing decision, one that we questioned many times. But he did make it through there, and ended up being there all through 8th grade. But you can kind of see, because of his disability, he had lots of issues. He had to be honest, his disability is one where he is starving to death at all times. And as a young child who couldn't communicate very well about it, it was really scary because he would steal food, he would eat things that were inedible. He was, slow to develop a lot of those. And this is just a picture of him. It actually was a county board program funded by local dollars called Lose the Training Wheels. And he was 12 years old and had not learned to ride a bike yet. And physical activity and hanging out with the people in the neighborhood was so important. And so the county board offered this, and none of us thought he would ever be able to do it. And you can see in the picture that he's a big guy and he has somebody running after him, but he did learn to ride a bike when he was 12 years old. And that was the beginning of a lot of things where he was busting all kinds of expectations that we really never had for him. And we were like, wow, wait a minute, maybe we don't really know everything. So now we're getting ready for high school on the next slide, Amy. Um, and, I just am going to kind of tell a little bit more here because, of course, a lot of you are probably in that stage. And we had a lot of problems in that area because he wanted to go where his siblings were. And for multiple reasons, that didn't seem viable. We tried hard, but it still didn't seem viable. So he ended up in the local career tech program. And I want to just talk about the county board because really we're talking about county board services and the importance of the kind of services. There was a lot of programs prior to high school that maybe seemed great, didn't seem great, but I felt like really I just was trying to be a mom during that time. But when it came to high school, the differences in his abilities only became more evident. He still did way more than I ever thought he was going to do, but it still was very, very hard. So that's when even as a county board, by then I was working back at the county board in a role, but I was like, I need help. I need to make sure somebody else is kind of giving me input about the direction he's going and what our decisions are and what are other opportunities. And so they were extremely helpful. I did have an SSA assigned when he was in high school, or a little bit before high school, probably, to help make some of those decisions. And I really kind of grappled with a lot of things. And um, they helped me come to some of those decisions to go ahead and have him attend a career tech school, even though his number one goal was to go to college, and really look into a lot of those options. He still was stealing food. He was suspended on regular amounts of a regular basis. He was growing at a regular basis. And again, the differences between him and his older sisters and younger sister, to be honest, by then were getting bigger. And so that was really difficult. I do want to say, you can see in the picture there that, he graduated from Mommy High School and Penta Career Center. And it was probably one of our very best experiences we'd ever had with, through that kind of help from the school systems and our county boards and our friends and our family, deciding to send him to a school where he learned some technical kind of skills around landscaping, turf maintenance, operating vehicles, and then also some job training programs that were offered through that program, which also was funded through Opportunities for Ohioans with Disabilities and the county board and the school system. He came out of high school with a lot of skills that I would tell you that my typical children did not come out with, which was a blessing, but also kind of sometimes a stress level for me. So he thought he was going to do landscaping for a good portion of his life, and he tried that out. He also tried stocking. He also tried working at a tree farm. And I would say over the course of the first 2 years after high school, he tried 3 or 4 jobs that really weren't a good fit, either because he just didn't like them or because he was, um, or because they weren't a good fit for him with his food issues and he had too much access to food. But he did participate in another program that was something that the county board shared with me and really helped promote, and that was a post-secondary college program at the University of Toledo, where he was taking classes for at first auditing college classes because he wanted to go so bad. Um, and then eventually he was able to take some of those classes for credit because of the support that he got in the first year of the program. So he ended up in actually 4 years in a college program, 2 of those years taking 1 or 2 classes for credit. So he has about 16 credit hours. And the other times he was working on social skills, getting involved in social events at the university. He was doing job training stuff that gave him opportunities that I could have never imagined, like working in the laboratory at the University of Toledo's medical center with blood draws. It was crazy. So it was really, really helpful. And then he was an admissions ambassador. That's the picture that's there, where he got to give tours to new students potentially attending the University of Toledo. And again, that helped him grow so much. So how thankful I was that there were people, whether it was friends, county board, the Opportunities for Ohioans with Disabilities, the school staff, all were kind of saying, we really need to try this. Let's just try a few more things. So he graduated from the University of Toledo's post-secondary program in 22, I think, during COVID, or 23. Still had one more job, but then eventually got a wonderful job that really fits him well at this time in his life, where he is actually a Medicaid biller, and works for a billing agency and works virtually. They trained him and he used a little bit of job coaching, not a lot, but a little bit. And now he's supported by that agency, and he works from home where there is food security and he doesn't have to worry about people offering him food. It does mean that he's home a lot, but we have come a long way with that. We still have a lot of concerns. You can see from like 19 on where I say that. I mean, he's 28 now. I still wish he had more friends. He still gets into food. He's still gaining weight. Life's not perfect. Um, I still worry about the responsibility on his sisters when I'm not around. And he did get a waiver from the County Board of DD when he was about 19 or 20 years old, and learning to navigate the waiver system a little bit. And even though I worked for the county board, I really didn't do a lot of that kind of really technical waiver work. Um, and I know it's crazy. And I was kind of all those other things. And then, just navigating Social Security. And then he wanted to get married. And I mean, I don't want to overwhelm you, but like, the differences, the challenges just change. It's not necessarily, sometimes it's more physical support, sometimes it's emotional support, sometimes it's just wondering if you did a good job. So I am super thankful for that. And I'm very happy with a lot of the supports that I've gotten from the county board. And there was some stuff that wasn't perfect. I will never tell you that it was always easy, even though I knew a little more than probably the average person. So going to the next slide, I want to get more to some of the story about what do county boards do. And Brad did a great job of kind of setting up that, our system is an 88 county system. You can skip that one. That's just all the people that helped him through all of his life stages. So you can move on to the next slide, Amy. Um, I'm not gonna, yeah, there we go. So let's talk about, county, just really quick. I don't want to bore you, but why do we have county boards? Brad said it, right? Like, why is our state different than other states? And, you know, I wasn't around in 1967 when they came around, but I was in, let's see, 1988 was when I started working for the county boards. So, the bottom line is Ohio made a very conscious choice to look at ways to support once IDEA came out and we started talking about kids with disabilities need to be in schools, they need to be, have help. County boards and family members, just like yourselves, are really the people that actually ended up kind of deciding that we needed to handle this at our community level, at our county level, and started the idea of having uh, property taxes to raise money to help people. We had no Medicaid back then. It was just literally, we need a way to support people with disabilities. They belong, they need to have active lives, and it started with schools for kids with disabilities that county boards ran. Then that turned into sheltered workshops were what they called them at that time, but were places for people to go after they were done with school to have activities and things, and all of that was really driven by family members who created these county boards of developmental disabilities and figured out a way to fund them through property taxes. So those services have changed dramatically over the years. A big shift came in the late 90s when the Medicaid system came up with home and community based services waivers to serve people all over the United States to replace institutionalization. And so a lot of things started changing in the late 90s. The funding source did not change. The county boards are still funded primarily by county property taxes. Um, we have over 100 and I think it's, to be honest, I think the 107,000 is probably a low number. I would say it's probably over 110, closer to 120,000 people eligible for services today in the state of Ohio. Um, and depending on each county's local property tax and their ability to use the money, we use those funds for different things. We still, obviously, everybody knows early intervention. We're going to skip through some of those slides. That's been a really big thing, but we use them. Many counties have gotten out of school services. Some still do some for people with extreme needs. And when we started using Medicaid waivers in the late 90s, it became an issue that county boards could not run day programs or sheltered workshops or provide direct personal care to people if they were using a waiver. It had to be, you had to separate that, and we would just be the person coordinating those services. So that's kind of how we landed where we are. And we've really moved much more towards being coordinators and connectors to people with their community. And then, of course, administrating Medicaid waivers. But many counties have lots of local services that they still are very involved in. Any county that has a school that is funded a lot by local tax dollars. Any county that has family, well, everybody has family resource dollars, that is local dollars being that. So, and then there's lots of other programs. So we're going to keep moving and talk about what county boards really do. And we are a lifespan service. That's really, really important to think about. We have a large amount of people that we become aware and that are eligible for services right at birth, to the age of 3. In order to be eligible at that time, you only need to have an at-risk condition or a referral from a doctor or, a diagnosis. I mean, it's a very broad thing. And that's when we pair up with everything to do with early intervention. And we have an entire staff person at OACB that knows everything about that. So I won't go into that. But then we also serve children and youth through school age, that 3 to 21. And although our services have changed dramatically over the past 20 years for that group, because we used to run the schools, and then as the schools ended up, public schools ended up taking over, or private that responsibility a lot, we were able to do other kind of supplemental services and coordination. And then certainly the adult life is super important. I think that's always been one of our number one goals, is to support people in their adulthood, because you lose a lot of the community, other community agencies in adult life, especially from 21 till 60, right? Like there's just people are supposed to be independent and able to take care of themselves, and our folks often aren't. So that is our absolutely a big priority. And the reason why I put down that we serve people to 101 is because we actually have somebody living. We have two people in Ohio that are over 100 years old. I think they just turned either 101 or 102. One is living over near the Dayton area, and one lives over near Youngstown, and are completely supported and have been probably since that 1967 that I wrote. So thank you to, I'm so glad that people are thriving and living so long, but it is a really important aspect when you think about county boards. So I did put a link on how to find your county board. There is a couple different ways to do it. This is the Department of DD's website, and you just click on the county that you live in, and then it gives you all key personnel at that county board. So you can just kind of, click a button and you can see. And if they don't have a department called eligibility or intake or information and referral, then you just call the first one that comes up. If it's the superintendent, it's the superintendent, right? Like whoever is there, they want you to find them. So by all means, I mean, the other way to do it is I put, general in Google, general number for, Wyandotte County Board of DD, and it will almost always come up. And then you just tell them, I don't really know what I need, but I have a person with disabilities in my family that I'd like to talk to somebody, and then they're supposed to take care of you. So
And I want to highlight that, this is coming from Lisa, who does work in the field, has worked in the field, um, is the parent of a neat guy that I had lunch with a couple weeks ago before I even knew that he was the son of Lisa, who I was about to meet. And works for the County Board Association. So just hearing you describe how to get in contact with the county board, that is pretty much an official answer if it's coming from someone who has OACB.
yeah.
Um, behind her name.
Yeah, I mean, and OACB also has a kind of a link, like you can go onto our general page and find your county board, and I think you'll get the superintendent's name. So, I mean, we know that some of them have a little different name and all that. It's not always easy. And so
Mhm.
just call a number and say, I don't know
So,
what I want. I just know I need to talk to somebody, and they should take care of you. So, okay, next slide. All right, so we're going to skip that one. We're not going to 3 to 5. This was for my earlier one. We can talk a little bit about 6 to 21, because that certainly high school is a big time, as I told you in my story. I had some, my unique needs with my son during high school. I did want some service coordination. That is the person. Like if you don't just want an email from a county board, that you're on their, whatever parent list or something, and every time they have a social activity, you get invited. Um, and you want somebody that you're going to talk to on a regular basis, then that is called a service and support administrator, and they provide service coordination. Now, with that service, it's a two-way street. In order to get that service, you do need to let the county board know, I need a service and support administrator. That's important to say. It's also important that you know that as a result of having a service and support administrator, it does mean that you need to have somewhat regularly scheduled meetings. There's rules and criteria. They have to write a plan, and they have to assess your needs, and they have to come visit you a couple times a year. And um, it's sometimes that, like when my son was young and I had 3 other young children in the home, I didn't want to deal with that. I don't want somebody in my house all the time. So I would just call and talk to the intake and referral person once a year and see, am I missing anything? Do I need anything? But as I got into high school and I knew there was a lot of decisions to be made, I started thinking maybe I do want a service coordinator, especially during any transition. So the transition from grade school to high school, the transition from high school to adult life or college. Those were the times that I was like, okay, yes, I'll put up with having meetings and having a plan written. I did not have any funding. I did not have any waiver initially during that time, but I did want to have somebody who understood the resources in my community. Um, so that service coordination is something that all county boards provide. Family support services, if a person is living with their family, all county boards should have that. Now, family support services is based on income. So even though they might offer it, you may or may not be eligible for it, but you can always ask about it. What are your criteria for family support services? What do you have for there? Once you're eligible, you have every right to ask for family support services. And what is that? And that is usually a small amount of money throughout a year that you have to identify a need based on your child's disability, that you're having an extra cost, and then they can tell you, like, are you eligible for it? What is the copay? Like, you might have to pay a portion depending on your thing, and how much they have. They usually have a budget for the year, and each county's a little bit different, but it's usually, I don't know, anywhere I've heard $600 to $1,200, I think, in the last couple of years would be your family support services, and that is income based for the family when you're a child. When you're an
Lisa, I
adult,
just wanted to put in a plug that it
yeah,
may not be income based depending on your county board. So
okay.
every board does differ in that. So your
Well,
county
thank you for
board
that.
may, yeah.
I only knew of ones that do them income based. So there you go. We learn something every day about our counties. So thanks for doing that. And know that it's different if somebody is an adult and they are living with their family, as far as the income based. I know that. Children are definitely usually on a family income. So we do provide service coordination, like I said, information and referral. Maybe you want to touch base with somebody at the county board on a regular basis, but you don't want to write a plan. You don't want to have ongoing meetings. You can ask them, do you have an information and referral phone number that I can just call and ask questions? Sometimes they'll have actually trained SSAs who might be available, just man phones. They might have like 200 people on their caseload, and they're just calling and answering phones every day from new people. So you can ask about that. The things on here that are asterisked are things that might be different county to county, and there's lots of things that I didn't put. I just put some of the more popular things. Most counties, a lot of counties, especially at the high school and adult age, have some kind of either staff on board. It might be an SSA, it might be a trained staff about behavior support, or they might have agreements with local mental health agencies or somebody to provide some help with issues related to challenging behaviors. Most county boards have some sort of self-advocacy training for people with disabilities, and many of them start in high school. So if you want your child to get involved in a self-advocacy training program, that is a very good question. To ask the county board, what do you offer? Some county boards are very directly related with Special Olympics, some are not, but almost every county does have some sort of Special Olympics program, and your county board should know how to access that. And that usually starts about 8 and over. Some of my things that I really, really appreciated when my son was going through high school was travel training. Everybody that is in high school wants to drive, or at least wants independence from everybody, right? And I already told you guys that, my son learned how to ride a bike at 12, and that was a big help for him with confidence and ability to kind of, fit into things. But, once his sisters were driving, that was a big talk. And so, quite a few county boards these days do have programs where they'll have somebody they'll either have an agreement with like a transportation company, public transportation, whatever, or they'll have somebody on staff that helps determine your child's safety walking through neighborhoods, biking through neighborhoods, handling, public transportation, or even possibly attaining a driver's license. That is a big push for people that are able to do that. More and more counties are looking at ways to help people, you know, get their driver's license if they really can. And my son was lucky enough to partake in something like that, and that was through a local county board funded program. It took him like 3 years, and I had to make peace with the fact that that was really scary for me. He didn't do it till he was 21, and he didn't get his license till he was like 23 or 24. But then somebody said to me, one of those people in the travel training department said, well, you know what? You don't have to decide if he gets his driver's license or not. That's up to the people that give him a driver's test. And I was like, oh, yeah, that's right. It isn't my decision. So that was a really neat thing. And then they had specialized driver's ed programs that were willing to work with him longer about certain things. So that was really great. Obviously,
Lisa,
yeah.
the wait list assessment, the waiver component,
Yep.
how does all that work?
Well, we're going to have some slides about that. So that's on every slide. Really, is that that you'll see it does not have an asterisk next to it. The waitlist assessment and waiver administration is the more formalized service coordination that SSAs do, and we definitely have that availability at all counties. So I'm going to keep moving through these because we already talked about a lot, and I'll go right into Brad's question. Can you go to the next slide, Amy? Oh, go to the next slide. Go to the next slide. Sorry. This is about why do we need a waiver, right? So what is really important right here is that as you're thinking about the waitlist assessment, as you're thinking about waivers and you hear about it, and we know that on public social media and you're hopefully some from your county boards or a hospital, you're hearing more and more like maybe you need a waiver. And totally understandable. The waiver is a great resource. What's important to know is that there's nothing magical about getting a waiver. I'm going to be really honest. I mean, it is a great way to help fund a need that you might have. But we have to know what your need is. It's super important that there is an assessed need that cannot be met by, family or, as an adult, there's, the family that can't be met by another resource. So if you're thinking about a waiver, it's super important that you've asked for an SSA, right? Or you've talked to the INR people quite a bit. Calling them up right off the bat and saying, I need a waiver, you're going to get this like, whoa. So I will say that make sure you know what you're asking for. And what you might be asking for is somebody to help support somebody go out in the community, or they might, you might need somebody to help support your child in your own home, or it might be job training, or it might be, just socializing. And then maybe the waiver is the answer, maybe it's not. But we're always going to look at all of these things when we start talking about, oh, wow, there is a need here. Then we're going to look, is there any availability within your specific community? Because different communities have a lot of resources. Is there something we could do with local county board dollars? Oh, okay. Yes, we have this program like Lose the Training Wheels. That would be great. Okay, let's do that. Are there family and friends or people in the neighborhood that could be helpful? Oh, okay, yeah, okay. I still have this one need though. I absolutely am going to lose my job if if I don't work until 5 o'clock every day, right? That might be a need. You're like, and he gets done with whatever he's doing at 3 o'clock, and I have no idea. So then maybe we've tried all those other things, and we're still missing a little bit, That's when you would say, I think I don't know, I might need help with funding that or finding someone to do that. That would be waivers. So we're going to talk a little bit. There's some examples for you around ways that county boards meet needs without the waiver, but I'm going to keep moving because I've talked about a lot of those. And we're going to talk a little bit about the waitlist assessment, just so you all know kind of the process, right? So you're like at the point where you're like, no, I think I think I want a waiver. And there's a couple things to keep in mind. The waitlist assessment is a standardized tool for the state of Ohio. Within a very short time of your request, there's a certain time that you need to have the waitlist assessment done. The county should be helping you. And then once you have that assessment done, the result needs to get to you also in a certain amount of time. After you get the result, you might get, I'm going to tell you on the next slide, the different results, but there still is a couple more steps before there's actually an allocation of a waiver, okay? Because even if you come up with an immediate need on a wait list, that you also have to then make sure that we get through Medicaid eligibility, which I'm going to talk about, and level of care, which I'll talk about too. So keep going. So a couple things with waitlist assessments. I've said most of them already. We're going to look at all those other sources also. It's part of our thing. As soon as you start talking about Medicaid dollars, which is what waivers are made of, you're going to want to use that as kind of a last resort, or at least I don't want to say last resort because it could be an accompaniment with a lot of things. But your potential outcomes are no need, which I'm just going to tell you right now, that's the worst thing I've ever heard. I don't know one family who has no need or one person who has no need. I fought hard to get those categories changed, but they're still the same. So your first one just basically means there's not a specific need that would be met by a waiver in the next 12 months. That's what no need means. It doesn't mean you don't have needs. It just means the waiver is not necessarily the answer. There's other things to try first. You could get the result of a current need, which means that there may be a need within the next 12 months. That doesn't mean guaranteed that you will get the waiver in the next 12 months. It means that we're going to put you on a list because we know that there's a lot of things going on. We're going to try some other things, and you might end up having a need. So that is what, when you think of a wait list in Ohio at your county level, that's the wait list, is current need folks, mostly. I think.
And that's different than it was 15 years ago,
Yeah,
right?
I talked today for 15 minutes about historically before the I think before the 2017, 2018 era, we had approximately 100,000 people on our wait list because everybody just went on it. And then we really never knew like who actually needed anything, and it was almost impossible for county boards and the state to plan for the future because we just had this enormous amount. Now we maintain a current need list. Like we know these people are coming up. So when you're in high school, that is a super important conversation the last 1 or 2 years of school, because life changes a lot after high school. There's not a 6-hour period every day where you're going to school. There's not maybe as many supports in your family. So that's a really good time to be kind of looking at that. And then, of course, another result of the waiting list could be this person has an immediate need related to health and safety in the next 30 days. And those always take priority. Those have to be given out and allocated within 30 days of that result in order to keep people health and safety. So those are your three options.
Lisa, is there anything else, one or two quick things that you could tell us before I kick it to Leah and Marcy and Stephanie?
Yeah. Let's go through it. Just remember the Medicaid eligibility. Go on through there. I just want to go really quick. Next slide, Amy. She lost me. She's like, I'm not going. I think the level of care would be the only other thing I'd really want to.
Yeah.
And the reason why I want to hit on the level of care is because even if you've gone through the waitlist assessment and even if you've gotten to Medicaid eligibility, it's really important to know that when you look at waivers, that every year initially and then every year after that, you need to review the level of care. And people change. Thank goodness people change sometimes. And so it's important to know that the county board will, as part of their job, have to review the level of care on a regular basis. Now, many people, it's a non-issue, but what the level of care means, I want you to know, is it really helps you understand the waiver system. And that is that this person meets the a kind of a residential, more institutional type setting level of care, um, and that you're opting for a waiver of a residential institutional setting. So Bradley and I have talked about that a little bit. Like sometimes families get upset with us because we talk about, have you considered, an ICF or some other kind of, an institutional type setting for your child. And that is actually part of our rule, is that we have to make sure we let you know there's multiple kinds of settings for people that do meet the ICF level of care. So we will talk about that, and what you're doing by going through the level of care and opting for a waiver is that you're waiving your right to an institutional setting. And that is because CMS and lots of people, myself included, really believe that people with disabilities belong in their communities and thrive better in their communities. And so we want the most people with disabilities to be in their community. But it also means that there's a lot of mandates around the rules about, as somebody receiving a waiver in Ohio, we absolutely have to make sure that we're treating, that they are part of their community and that we're not creating like a little institution in somebody's home. So that's been kind of a big driving force in Ohio for the last 5 years, where we're really, SSAs and our plans have to be very oriented towards getting out into the community and navigating the community and thriving in the community. And I'm really glad for most people that works really well. There are people that absolutely thrive in institutional settings and a more sheltered setting, but our waivers are really meant to help people become part of their community. So I think I'll stop there, Brad, and I'll come back whenever you want me to talk about anything else.
This is so much when I said, "Oh, I'm going to learn some stuff." My own paper is yeah. Um, Leah Dalton, I would love it if we can kick it to you for 5 minutes or so or less, up to you, to tell us about when there's someone who is in that teenaged age period, what we call transition. Um, how do county or what are things county boards can help to plan with in that transition phase?
Sure. Thanks for having me, everybody. As Bradley said, I'm Leah Dalton from Cuyahoga County Board. I'm an SA manager over youth and transition. Lisa covered a lot of what support administration does. So I think that's a good way to kind of talk about what is happening. But I want to get a little bit deeper into what you might see, what it might feel like for you. Lisa talked about meetings. There's a lot of meetings, especially once you get to high school. And that's with typical kids. And then you're adding more meetings on top of it when you've got kids with disabilities. So, we understand the need for all of those meetings. And we want the support administrator to be there so that they can help coordinate all that's going on. So you're going to have a transition coordinator through the school. You might be working with an OOD counselor through opportunities for Ohioans with disabilities. You might be working with, as she mentioned, a travel trainer. You might be talking to what your next step is going to be. That whole group of people looking at tours, being available to do all of those things and see what options might be available. So the service and support administrator is there to kind of help you guide and lead the next steps. They will start in your usually about 14 freshman year of high school, maybe 8th grade, depending on your county board. Get in and start attending meetings. Now, those first couple of years, they're not going to be at every IEP meeting. They're not going to be at every ETR meeting, but they'll come to the ones that they can, and they'll be gathering information. They're going to be working with you. They'll be working with your child. They'll be assessing. So it's going to get kind of annoying and ad nauseum, but they are trying to dig in and find out what is important to your child, what they want to do with their lives. It's something that we recognized kept missing. We kept missing that boat. We were missing the fact that we weren't really talking to that child to figure out what they wanted for their lives. The rest of us took some time to figure out what we wanted, and we went into our lives, careers, families, whatever it is, making those decisions. But we weren't taking the time to ask people with disabilities. And now that we're in there, we're really trying to dig in and ask a lot of questions. So sometimes it might seem like, what are we doing each day that we're in these meetings? And we're here to identify what's important and start working on a trajectory to get that need for that individual. So like your loved one, we're there to help plan. We're there to help identify what that path could look like. Once you get into junior, senior year, you're going to see us a lot more often. We're going to be at more meetings. That's when we're going to start attending those IEP meetings more regularly. We'll start tours with whether it be college programs, whether it be ADS and vocab programs, whether it just whatever idea, whatever trajectory you're on, we'll be there to help do some of those tours. We'll be there to work with any outside agency, whether it be Ohio Rise is new to our system as well. And so we collaborate closely with our Ohio Rise and other MSY service systems. Lisa talked about what does the community have to offer. We will help connect to community collabs. We help connect to Family Children First Council. We help use the resources that are in our community, the Adams Board, whether it be many other systems that we can kind of pull from and collaborate together. It's a lot of people. And so we try to help be there to navigate some of that for you as parents and for your child. So that's really kind of a gist in a small scope. Bradley gave me 5 minutes. I'm trying to keep my time together. But I think in general, I think you count on us to be there through that transition time. We know what it feels like to have that cliff. People talk about a cliff all the time. You're leaving the school system, which has been kind of your safety net, and you're the fear of moving into the adult world and not sure what's there. And so it kind of feels like they're dropping you on a cliff and then popping you on the other side eventually, and you don't know what's over there. Our hope as the support service and support administration departments across the state are to help be that bridge, help build the bridge with you, and then make sure that you've got the resources that are needed on the other side. We're not just going to drop and plop. We're going to be there to, support and guide throughout that process.
That's spectacular stuff. Thanks, Leah Dalton. I have a feeling both Leah and Lisa will be coming back to you as I see the questions that are coming up through the chat. But first, Marcy, Stephanie, who would like the first? Who would like to share a little bit first about your own family journey?
I'll go.
Heck yeah! Thank you.
Yeah, I'll go. Okay, I am Stephanie Stewart. I have a son, Elijah Jones. He is now 22 years old. And I can only echo everything that I've heard thus far with everybody. Elijah was born prematurely. He was born at 25 and a half weeks. He was 1 pound and 9 ounces. So everything we've done have been a mile step here, there. But I will agree with, as he gotten older, each transition of his time in school, at high school is where it became more important. I can say that, through the high school, I've had a lot of help with his SSA. Each one I have had a great experience of helping me and Elijah navigate through that. Had I not had that, I can tell you I wouldn't know what and where and what to do, because each step is different. And being involved in the school system, you need to have a partner to help you figure out what he's going to do for the future, how is he going to go to school because he wanted to go to college so badly. He see all of his friends graduating and talking about college plans. How am I going to get this young man into a college setting with the disabilities that he has? Can he really do that? But I had the support of the supportive administrator every step of the way through, I'm going to say, through 9th grade on up. And not only that, I had support and help with healthcare provider that started early. She said, hey, listen, you might want to start early with transition, Elijah. And I was like, at 13, what are we going to do at 13? How am I going to, he's not going to have a job or whatever, but it all worked out and it all makes sense. At 13, we started doing things, transitioning and having the support administrator with me almost at all of his IEP meetings, even at going to the doctors, having him go into the doctor to see how he can speak with his doctor providers, going to do certain things. Now, there are some things that Elijah still is learning, and so am I. I will say that you do get that cliff and that shock of like, oh, okay, because the support is there when you're in high school. And, for him, he was a big kid on campus in high school. Everybody liked him. Everybody, but when high school was over, what are we going to do? And that was a huge wake up for him, that going to a program that is not the same as high school. So he got involved in a program that is a day program that also offer him the college experience. When he got there, he was able to take college classes along with that. He's now in his 3rd year of being at Tri-C Community College. and taking classes. He's doing okay. There are some challenges, but he's doing okay. And he still wants to have this big ideal of being on campus, you know, like he loves BW, you know, he wants to, you know, be in BW atmosphere. You know, when I get done, I'm going to go over here. Each year I have to figure out a way to either put that on hold, or now I'm at the point now that I have to let him see it. And hopefully I can reach out to BW to find out what can he do there. And we're going to get there. And he has a job coach that helps him. He got a job now, working 1 day a week. He also has an autism coach through LifeWorks that helps him navigate through how to deal with, if you were to go to college, how can you take care of yourself on campus? If you would go to college, what can you do to help do all those things? And he's thriving. Sometimes he don't understand it, sometimes he does. But I'm just glad, and I'm very thankful that the support system that I had for Elijah, all along, like there was always somebody there to help us along the way. And I don't know, Bradley, I
That was great. Honestly, I feel like that was you illustrating the details of what Lisa and Leah were just talking about in theory. Honestly, like that was boom.
yeah.
That's really cool.
And I will say one other thing, that
Mhm.
how I got the waiver, that is another thing that is not introduced right away, you know, because he didn't get a waiver up until unfortunately, I became a cancer patient. And during that time is when the process got speeded up, or, you know, we were able to do that because of that. But now that he has the waiver, of course he needs it, you know, of course it is very helpful for him and for me too. Not only did I have cancer once, I had it twice. So it was kind of like, what are we going to do here? You know, what is going on here? But I've been okay, and so have he. And I've had support from a lot of people and all over to help make sure that he's okay. Yeah.
The idea of what Lisa was talking about the waiver connecting to an unmet need, and as
Yes.
grave the situation is, but just to hear like, oh,
Yeah.
all of a sudden stuff that mom could do
Yeah.
literally cannot
Yeah.
equals an unmet need. So I
Right.
just saw a comment in the chat where someone was saying it's great to hear about these guys going to college, but that's not in the cards for my kid. Marcy, I got the impression that your kid, as delightful as he is not someone who's probably going to be living the academic lifestyle. Would you tell us a little bit about your story and his story, and your perspective on these things?
Yes. Yeah. And I was sitting here, even knowing this story, Stephanie's story, feeling the way that the person that just put in the chat, because I'm like going, oh, it just gets you in the heart, you know. But so my name's Marcy Brown, and I'm the mother of a 27-year-old fantastic guy, Jacob Candy. And we started, I was single at the time when we started, I guess, maneuvering this. I had joined a mom's group when he was about in first grade. We kind of fell through the cracks when I had him. He was a 24-week preemie, and he was given 10% chance to live past 3 days. So he definitely, you know, broke that. And he does have cerebral palsy. He's bound to a wheelchair, blind, hydrocephalitis. So he has a VP shunt, and also epilepsy. And when he was 10 was when he was awarded the waiver. So, and everybody's been talking about the SSAs, and I was a little like, I just assumed, and again, we're talking about learning things here, that everybody's probably had an SSA for as long as we have. So we've been very fortunate that our SSAs that we've have helped us through this whole transition, even starting like in just like the middle school to high school. And she started going to all our IEP meetings with us. She was kind of my sounding board through this whole process. And then from the high school into what would be his for foreseeable future, what his life is going to look like, hopefully for a very long time, but into the day program. And I kind of was like, oh my gosh, how's this going to work? And I started asking about the information. Probably it was too late. I think he graduated in 2018, so he would have been 20. And, Stephanie, sounds like you started way earlier than we did. And I think a lot of that is because, we're dealing with, all the medical stuff, all the things that, for my son, as he got older, he started to digress and have more medical issues as he's gotten older. So I just couldn't see past really the high school, period, and what his life and our life was going to look like. So I really leaned on our SSA at the time to help us navigate that and see what was appropriate for him and what's out there. And we started going to all the provider fairs that we could go to. And I believe most of the county boards have those. I was doing a little looking just to see what has changed in, the 17 years that we've, had an SSA and going through this whole process. And, a lot has changed. And, but so if you can go to the, county board fairs or provider fairs, that was huge. And then have our SSA, she would go with us to all the different day programs that we were looking at, because, some would be day program, vocational program. And I just knew he wasn't going to be able to have a job, unfortunately. So she helped us navigate that and come to terms with what his day-to-day life was going to look like once, we got to, he graduated and then aged out of high school.
Go ahead, Stephanie.
I would like to again say with Marcy, I agree with everything she's saying, because Elijah has cerebral palsy. He has a walker that he walked with. He has visual issues. All those come with being premature at 25 and a half weeks. All of those things come with that. And having the SSA, to explore with us was very helpful. It didn't come to the fact that, okay, he want to go to college. We had to figure out where it would be best fit for him to get what he wanted out of it, or would it be a day program? Those are some of the choices that we came up with. We went to a whole lot of programs. Some came to us, came to the school with the SSA person. We went to some of the places to visit to see what would be best fit for him. And this program happened to give a little bit of everything. So he would, if he didn't fit in well with the college background, which is what he wanted, they had other programs that he can do. And so that's where we landed at.
What I'm going to start doing, team, is I'm going to be reading you some of the questions from the chat, which I've been eyeing as we've been talking. And we're just going to keep talking about these things until it is 8 o'clock and time for us to do our evaluations, because there is just so much beautiful juice we can keep talking about here. There is one sort of summarizing question that I want to start with before I get into some of the details. And this is to everyone. What if you're calling the county board and it feels like you're not getting what you need, or it feels like you're getting bounced from person to person? What can families do in that situation?
I know for me, I would always, but this is sounds like it's going to be different for a lot of people who maybe don't have a waiver at this point. So somebody else might have to speak on that piece of it. But I went to the SSA, and then if there was, any hiccups there, which there were along the way, especially we've gone through not gone through, but we've had the SSAs that have either moved on, left. So we're on number 5 right now, which is a lot. But we've been fortunate with all of them. But I would, call them. And the one thing that they would say to me is, well, I don't know that. I need to find out for you. Give them a little bit of time and go back to them. Hey, we've got to, get an answer to this. If not, let me talk to your direct supervisor, or who else can we conference in? And it's not to get anybody in trouble. It's just a lot of this stuff we've got to get answers for. And I understand at the time I understood they have a lot of other, clients that they're taking care of, but all I can be concerned with right then is my son.
Well, and
So
I do hear that from a lot of people, that let's bring in the supervisor does seem to be part of. Lisa, I see you giving a big nod. And Leah,
yeah.
and
Yeah, I think
y'all are the ones who work in that world.
Yeah, and it is really, it definitely is. If you have an SSA and you're not getting the feed, the responses that you definitely would want to move up the chain. If you don't have an SSA, which was some of the questions down lower, and maybe like how long does it take, or how do I, it really is a matter of, usually it's a staffing matter of staffing for SSAs is an all-time high. I think we have 30% turnover in the first year or something. And so it is a lot of new people, and sometimes some people fall through the cracks. So it's really important to continue to call back or ask for any kind of family support programs advice. And ultimately, people will definitely, kind of sometimes jump a couple. It's not always easy to know who their supervisor is. So if you have to call, like I said before, I mean, if you got to call the director of all the SSAs, you call the director, and that's the kind of stuff that's on the DODD website, and they'll route you the right direction. I don't know, Leah, you got anything? You guys are
Yeah,
a
no,
big
I definitely agree. I think we
Cuyahoga,
always don't be afraid to call the supervisor or higher up.
whoever's
We
number you
appreciate
have.
that. Sometimes, people are learning, people make mistakes. I think we've all talked about blips are happening. It's okay. And that doesn't mean that person is horrible at their job, or doesn't mean that, you're ratting them out. It just means we need more help at this table. And I
So
think that sometimes,
let's do it together on the count of 3. Don't be afraid to call the supervisor. 3, 2, 1.
yeah,
Don't be
Don't
afraid
be
to call the
afraid
supervisor.
to call the
supervisor.
supervisor.
And for some of us, that's really hard, but
Yeah.
yeah, it's
Mhm.
almost like the system assumes we're gonna have to do that. Stephanie, what were you thinking?
I've had a supportive administrator longer than I had a waiver, so
Mhm.
right away when I don't know if he had it in the early infant months, but I do know it was during school. So he've had a SSA person for a long time. The waiver came when when I had my diagnosis.
Yeah.
And that kicked in right away because I applied and applied, and it was kicked back for a while. But by the graces, someone said, okay, this mom is going through this, and that's how we got a waiver. But I've had an SSA person longer than I had a waiver.
And I will say, I noticed Lisa put some stuff in the chat. There's an SSA is not, you don't necessarily need one to get planning done. So I
Yeah.
think that that's something I just want to emphasize to people as they're going through some of this. It's going to be different phases, different things going on in your child's life that will constitute the different needs for for having someone come to the table at different levels. So there might be someone from the information and referral group. There might be someone from family supports that's helping, providing different resources. So it's not saying no one will be there. They can guide some of that stuff, but when planning gets more intense, we assign a support administrator. So when the needs change, when there is a change, let someone know. So every time something's going on that you feel like this is so different, Stephanie talked about her health change. That's a change. Something's different with your child. Something's going on, or there's planning needs. It's kind of got you confused. That to me is a change. You need to let someone know.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, agreed.
Let
And every
me,
county is a little different on that part. I mean, I will say, because there is, some counties have a really great information and referral department that pretty much screens and is that contact and is just kind of keeping notes. And then other counties assign almost everybody an SSA as long as the family wants one. It's just people, people's life get in their way. I mean, I was one of those people. Like, I would say I really want an SSA, and then I was like, they'd call me 3 or 4 times and I was like, I don't have time. And they're like, okay, call us when you need us. And that was kind of like, I got it. That's my responsibility back then to call them because things have changed. So, yeah, be patient, but be persistent, right? Like that is, we really do want to know what's going on. And, sometimes it's just a matter of, it's not always an SSA. That is for sure.
that's another thing I kind of want to write on my arm: be patient, yet be persistent. Other side, don't be afraid to call the supervisor.
And I don't
There is a
know.
question that came
Oh,
up earlier that caught my eye that I think might be a really good example for some of this stuff. From a Paul in the audience whose son is 20. My son is currently 20. He cannot safely be left alone. He's out in the community as a volunteer for fun with an HPC, homemaker personal care, support professional. However, I need to research group homes or perhaps a tiny home or apartment. I know the adjustment is better in their 20s versus in their 60s, but not able to see or hear information. So if we're talking about my son is 20, I know eventually he's going to be on his own, or at least not at home at one. Is that an unmet need? What does a family do when they're just thinking about that sort of thing in general?
So I could jump in. I used to be the housing manager, so this kind of before I became a youth and transition manager. So I fielded this question a lot during this transition time. It is that question. My child is graduating high school, getting ready to be an adult. Is it time for them to move out? I think doing the same things the prep that was done for any typical child needs to be done for a child with disabilities. What kind of time have they had trying different things in the home? What kind of things can they do for themselves? What kind of things have you put aside? Grandma's couch, the pots and pans, getting them registered with Social Security, Medicaid, helping them figure out how they're going to start getting this income that's going to help them pay their rent, right? Because they're going to live in an apartment. What does that look like? Do they need to live with a housemate? So start thinking of some of those things as you're starting to guide yourself through that process. I know it's a lot after you've just working through graduation and thinking about what's happening for employment or their next phase in their life. But thinking of housing is similar. You're thinking of what does that look like? What does that mean? And your support administrator should be able to help you with that. So that's a time when I would contact someone and say, how do we have this conversation? Can I have a support administrator to maybe plan with me for a little while and get some ideas of what possibilities and options could be? That
There's
doesn't
enough.
necessarily, not everybody requires a waiver. Not everybody
Mhm.
requires assistance. So it's kind of it's going to depend on the need of each child. And there's a vast majority across the state of things from, as Lisa talked about, more facility-based to tiny homes living with smart tiny homes. So we've got things from every gamut that, depending on the functioning of your loved one, that's kind of where you have to then start focusing on what that could look like. Did that
I
help?
want to ask y'all a question about matching with day programs and getting the right fit, particularly for people whom it's not going to be about career. It's not going to be about college. Trying to find a day program. I'm reading from Yvonne's comment here. Trying to find a day program for her that is ideal to her needs seems so hard to find. Someone who's got more significant cognitive challenges. How do families match with the right day program, and is there a way to make it last?
well, for us, the way I went about it was I asked the SSA for a list of day programs. I also then went to different county board websites because I was having problems. I'm in Montgomery County, Dayton, Ohio. So I was having problems at the time finding, just a good list of day programs, and just started doing my own research. And then I would send something to the SSA. And if she couldn't go, I would set up a visit. And it was tough. I went into a lot of them, and I don't want to say got this sick feeling, but it was such a big change from what we were so used to that a lot of them, I couldn't see my son there. So she kept telling me, just stick with it. We're going to find what's, right for Jacob. And I just started making a list of each place I went. Okay, I didn't like this. I didn't like this. I did like this. And we would just kind of brainstorm. And if she knew of some place, she would let me know. If I said, hey, what about this place? And I think we probably toured about 20 different day programs. And out of that, I narrowed it down to 2. And it's kind of a cliche statement, but when you just get kind of that feeling like, okay, you can see your loved one there, and there is a place out there for them. So it's tough, but you just have to stick with it. And again, really lean on the SSA and just compile the biggest list of day programs that you can to go and visit.
Something I'm picking up from y'all is that it's not like, okay, you get your SSA, you get your day program, now they'll run things. Like, it sounds like as the parent or it sounds like there always needs to be that advocacy happening.
Yeah.
Yeah, basically it's like oh, sorry, I'm jumping in,
No.
Lisa, but
No, go
I
ahead,
feel
Darcy.
like, I kind of take things from my past job, we'll say, since now Jacob's my full-time job now, but just constantly overseeing everything and making sure that you're following up on this and following up on that, and that you're getting all the information you need. I just feel like we're kind of the top of the umbrella, and watching everything else that's taking place in their life and overseeing that as well. So
Yeah, nobody replaces a
Go ahead,
family.
Stephanie.
Guardianship and guardianship.
Oh, guardianship.
Guardianship
yeah,
is a big moving forward when you turn and before you turn 18, and you hear this is part of transition from one step to the next, or the next age is guardianship too. So in order to make some of these decisions, or most of the decisions, with Elijah's help, guardianship was a huge thing. So when he turned 18, with the help of everyone that was with us, I got the guardianship, for him, to help him make the decisions without him making the decisions by himself. Because if you don't have the guardianship, then you know what, he can make the decisions on his own.
There are some glorious questions in here. I'm gonna see. Like I said, I'm just gonna keep going until someone pulls the plug. Here's a really specific but helpful for lots of people question from Katie. When a person was served in high school on an IEP with an intellectual disability based on school testing, but now do not have the medical psychologist diagnosis, which y'all are familiar with, the diagnosis for the IEP is not the same diagnosis that opens up the eligibility for level of care and all that stuff. Check this next layer out. Is there funding that helps them get the evaluation in order to receive services?
I know that we as a county board do not offer local funding for that. I don't know if others, I see Lisa shaking her head, so I don't
There's
think
a
that's something that
few,
we're.
but Most don't. Mostly it does fall on the responsibility of the family or the person. A lot of places will try to help you find, places, but as far as actually paying for it, there's very few counties. And it's usually when somebody is maybe, like they need a lot of help quickly because they're in an
Yeah.
immediate health and safety issue. And so they'll say, okay, like, let's figure out if we can get a psych eval done because they're so worried about the person and they know maybe the person's 50 and we just found them, and
Can
we're
I
like,
ask
oh, we got to
primary
go find some.
care?
Pardon?
Like, can I ask primary care to say like, hey, how do I get a psychologist to do this assessment?
Absolutely. And there's certain, I mean, depending, and in county boards, I mean, it's hard with the whole high school, the whole educational diagnosis, but, there is a lot of different diagnosis. Many can come from a medical doctor, obviously psychiatrists, psychologists, um, nurse practitioners are allowed to make a lot of diagnosis. So it really depends what the disability is.
I'm seeing from a couple people the idea of the squeaky wheel gets the grease. Sometimes it just doesn't work. I feel that. I'm gonna tell y'all the thing when I used to work as a case manager and then we made the new family, I would say to the parents, every single one of them, you got to this point having to be the warrior to advocate for your kid, and your job has been to make life difficult for people who don't do what you think they need to do for your son. And even if that's me, and I'm really think I'm doing pretty good, but even if I'm not, it is your job to call me on it and make my life challenging until I do whatever you think I need to get your kids' needs met.
I wanted to say, Brad, really quick about the comment about how do you find day programs to tour, and
Yeah.
is that through the SSA school or by yourself? I mean, certainly if you have an ongoing SSA, that is your first line of, um, of work. And it's just really important. There's on the DODD website, there's a find a provider. You can go into Google search and go Ohio Department of DD, find a provider. It'll come up. It's not the most useful provider search, I'm going to tell you, but you do put in your county, you do put in, what kind of, if you're looking for an agency, I would say a lot of people are for day services, you're going to be looking for an agency, and then you put adult day services or vocab, and it will come out with a list of all those in the county. That doesn't mean they all have openings. It doesn't really tell you much about them, but it at least gives you a list. And by rule, at the very least, the SSAs need to be like making sure you know that link. But most counties also have some sort of provider search strategy besides that. And so you should be asking your county board, can you get me a list of willing providers that would be willing to like interview or have a tour of this particular situation? We're getting more and more counties using a more similar search tool called OnScene. But I know Cuyahoga has, everybody has. Some of them do it by email to all the providers. Some of it's a website, but the SSA or somebody at the county board should be able to help you with that. But they cannot tell you who they think your child, no matter how well they know your child. All they can do is help you find those providers, but ultimately you or your child are who need to make that decision. The SSA's role is very much not one of advocating or giving an opinion when it comes to choosing providers. That's a conflict of interest for us. So it makes me sad, by the way, but it is what it is. So otherwise, SSAs would try to send everybody one place, right? Like,
Well, and I'd just like to jump onto that just quickly and say that, the SSA, you can work with them to come up with some interview questions,
yeah.
things that are important to you. So while I can't tell you, Stephanie, I need you to look for someone for your son that you need to make sure that this issue, we know is an issue, we know it's going to be a thing, and you know it's going to cause you to go through 3 different providers already, that this is the one thing we need to address. So I can make sure as an SSA that I'm writing down that this is something we have to address with this provider. What happens if you have a call off? Does it mean you're not going to show up? What happens if my son has a behavior at your day program? Like, what happens if he runs outside in the street? Like, who's going to be there to help him? Those are things that sometimes people are afraid to ask those hard questions. Put them out there. I always say you're better at putting them out there, and your SSA can help guide you through that interview. They can't tell you who to pick, but they can help guide you with the questions. And sometimes if you're not thinking of them, they can help you with that. So I would ask them to be your guide.
Mm-hmm.
There is, so it is 8 o'clock. I want to encourage everyone to scroll through the chat here. Some of the questions that have come up, either members of the panel or other people have answered in the chat, and there's some really good resources here. If there are specific questions, like I just saw very last, is there someone who can help me with the guardianship paperwork? Milestones that I work for has this free help desk service that will point you in the right direction. Milestones.org, that is an option. And if you are able to do the camera thing, I always want to call them on the hashtag, but it's not a hashtag, it's a QR code, and point your camera at the QR code. Or Wendy, I bet, will put the link for the evaluation in here one more time. Lisa, Stephanie, Marcy, Leah, special appearance by Whitney. Thank you so much for sharing your life experience, your wisdom. Seeing like the threads and dots connected between your different stories and your different processes was really, really cool.
Thank you.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.
All were awesome. This was, again, the best way I could think of to end this year with our last booster session in Ohio. And we just couldn't be happier that all of you joined us. As Bradley said, please, please, please fill out the evaluation. But Stephanie, you and Marcy, thank you so much for sharing and making us all understand some tips and tricks that have worked for you. And Leah and Lisa, thank you for imparting on all of us, what county boards can do. And, some people just don't know how to ask, don't know what to ask, don't know what to do when they don't hear back. So it's good to know time frames and schedules and what's going on behind the scenes. And Bradley, we bow down to you. Thank you. Thank you so
There shall
much.
be no bowing. There shall be mutual respect.
We
Props back to you.
we do that. But thank you so much for putting this together for us and helping out.
Did pretty good yourself there.
Thank you.
This was a great thing. I'm also loving, I just out of the corner of my eye, I tried to half answer a question and noticed that I got it slightly wrong. But
too.
just the idea of the question of, can the waiver pay for this? And my answer was kinda, and Leah's answer was specifically no. The idea that, but again, it is none of us will ever know all of it, but it's what is the unmet need? What is the unmet need? Can I talk to your supervisor?
Just keep bugging them.
And
That's
sometimes,
when all else fails, just keep bugging.
or sometimes, not always a phone call, go to there and go in the lobby and sit. Somebody will help you.
Yes. Well, thanks everyone. We're gonna log off and wish you all a great night. So glad everyone could join us. Thank you. Good night.
Thanks so much,
Thank
team.
you.
Thanks, everyone.
Bye.
Bye.
Bye-bye.
Bye.